Trailblazer Award from the Mid-Missouri NAACP. Dan hosts a weekly radio program on community station affiliated with National Public Radio. The program is called Sex, Drugs, and Civil Liberties. Please, everybody, let's give it up for Dan VIETS.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you for being here. Now, I remember Woodstock, and it was just like this. Just exactly like this, although I hope we don't get the rain here. You know, about, I don't know, 12 or 15 years ago, I got a phone call from a Marine. You never really are an ex-Marine, they say, but a guy who had served in the Marines, who had dreadlocks down to his shoulders, named Al Minta. And Al and his wife Sandy lived right here in Joplin. And Al decided that he just couldn't stand the hypocrisy anymore and the outrageous injustice of pot prohibition. He decided he was going to do something about it. And so he decided that he would create the Cannabis Revival. And a lot of people hear that and go, what the hell is a Cannabis Revival? Well, you know, I think it's a recognition of the fact that we all need to have a religious fervor to fight the immorality and the injustice of pot prohibition. And I think Al Minta had a very good insight there. So Al went to the city and said he wanted to get a permit to have a cannabis revival at Schiffendecker Park at that time. And the city said, what the hell is a cannabis revival? And no, we don't think we want to have one of those here in Joplin. And so Al called me up, and I agreed. I talked to him, and I called him up and said, hey, I'm with the ACLU, and we hear that you're not going to give a permit to the Cannabis Revival? And they said, oh, no, that's not right. Of course we're going to give a permit to the Cannabis Revival. And ever since then, the city has been very cooperative, and they've found what we could have told them to start with, that people that smoke pot are no different from people who don't smoke pot. You know, they may be a little nicer, but otherwise they're basically just like everybody else. And, you know, and the city recognizes that now. I don't even see any police here today. It used to be they were all around the place. And, you know, there's a growing recognition of that fact. People in general are starting to realize that pot prohibition is crazy. It's insane. It doesn't make any sense from any point of view whatsoever. You know, I want to be sure to say thanks to Kelly Maddie and Ryan and all the great people in Joplin who put this event together. And they really do deserve our thanks and our applause. Kelly is just an outstanding activist, and you all are very lucky to have somebody like him down here in your community working for the long term. And we've all got to be in this for the long term. People used to say, when's it going to be legal? And I remember Keith Strupp said it's going to be legal in 1978, and he still stands by that prediction today. Well, it should have been, and it looked like it might be back in the mid-1970s when a dozen states decriminalized marijuana possession. And then things came to a grinding halt. And we didn't lose ground. They didn't repeal decriminalization, but we weren't able to make any progress until about 1996, when Proposition 215 passed in California, and when several other states started passing medical marijuana measures. Well, Missouri has been in that fight as well. And you may not know that this past year, medical marijuana got further in the Missouri General Assembly than it ever has before. Now, that's not to say it was close to passage, but it certainly made more progress than it ever had at any previous time in the past 12 or 15 years that we've been introducing those bills. Now, unfortunately, it was the Speaker of the House, Ron Richard, who's from right here in Joplin, who kept that bill from getting a hearing. But notwithstanding Ron Richard's depraved back room, smoke-filled room, they used to call it, machinations, we did manage to get that bill voted on in both houses of the Missouri General Assembly this year for the first time ever. And it didn't pass, but by God, we identified who our friends were. We had more friends than we thought we had. We had more sponsors this year than we've ever had before, and we will be back in the 2011 session of the Missouri General Assembly. Medical marijuana bills will be filed again, if we're lucky, in both the House and Senate. And once again, we'll probably have more sponsors than we've ever had before.
Hell yeah.
You know, the most important thing going on in the country right now is Proposition 19 out in California. Just as Proposition 215 back in 1996 led the way and laid the foundation for a nationwide medical marijuana movement, Proposition 19, if it passes this year, will doubtless lay the foundation for many other states to do likewise. And in Oregon, we just learned this week that in Oregon, a legalization bill has been filed there. A legalization bill could very easily be on the ballot in Oregon in just a couple of years. Now, we all hope it's going to pass this year in California. It may or may not. It's tough to pass a progressive bill in an off-year election. But I and many other people whose opinions I respect are absolutely certain if it does not pass this year, it will pass in 2012. It will pass in 2012. If it does not pass in 2010, marijuana will be legal again in the nation's largest state in 2012. And I think that's a pretty impressive piece of progress, folks. I think that's something we need to be excited about. And we can all be part of that campaign. You don't have to go to California to be part of that campaign. You just go online to Prop 19, go to YesOn19, YesOn19.com, and make a contribution and keep up with what's going on. And I want to bring you today news from the Prop 19 campaign in California. Jeff Jones and Richard Lee are the leaders of that campaign. Jeff sent out an email last night that said, I want to be sure you know the most recent polls on Prop 19. They show what you and I already know. California is ready to legalize cannabis. Public Policy Polling, which is a highly regarded professional polling firm, shows that Prop 19 is up by 9 points, 47 to 38 passing right now. Another national polling firm, Survey USA, shows the measure passing also by fewer points, but the important point to understand is that our lead is increasing. We have the momentum with us, but we're going to face intense opposition in the coming weeks. And among the highly funded opponents is the Law Enforcement Treatment Industrial Complex. The law enforcement complex is wrong, but they think that they have some kind of vested interest in maintaining pot prohibition. And the Prison Guards Union in the state of California is the #1 lobbying organization in that state. We need to fight back, and it takes money. Money is the mother's milk of politics. And although none of us is rich, as far as I know, all of us have a little bit of money we can give to that campaign. You should do that tonight. Go online, go to YesOn19.com, and contribute whatever you can to that very, very important effort. If it passes and you kicked in even a couple of bucks, you can take pride in being part of that most important effort. And if it fails and you didn't kick in a couple of bucks, well, then you're going to feel bad. And, you know, we'll come back in 2012, but we could have done it this year if people like you would just come together and work together. And thanks for being here today. I mean, if you do nothing else for marijuana legalization, but just show up for Cannabis Revival, then you've done something for the movement. But not enough. Not enough. You know, being here today is a great first step. I know many of you here have been involved for years and have done much, much more. But for those of you who have not been active in the movement in the past, make this the kickoff. That's what the revival is all about. We're here to revive your faith in the ability of Americans to change the law, the ability of Americans to bring about greater liberty. That's what we all are raised to believe we have the power to do in this country. It's true. It's real. It's happening right in front of us all around this country. And we need to make it happen here in Missouri and Kansas and Arkansas and Oklahoma. You know, at the beginning of this legislative session back in January, the Chief Justice of the Missouri Supreme Court, Ray Price, he was appointed to that court by none other than John Ashcroft. He gave a hell of a speech to the Missouri General Assembly. The Republican Ashcroft appointee, who is the highest judicial official in the state of Missouri, says to the legislature, on February 3rd actually, says, "Today I will talk about the need to rethink our strategies to deal with nonviolent crime, including drug and alcohol crime." He says, given the financial situation of the state, we've got to look hard at the costs and the effectiveness of our current statutory schemes, especially for nonviolent offenders. And this statement, I think, really is the most significant of all. He says, perhaps the biggest waste of resources in all of state government. Now, that's a sweeping statement. The biggest waste of money in all of state government says the Chief Justice of our Supreme Court is incarcerating nonviolent offenders and the mishandling of drug and alcohol offenders. It costs us billions of dollars, and it is not making a dent in crime. So the foundation is there. If an Ashcroft appointed to our Supreme Court can say these things to our state legislature, we all should be doing far, far more than that. We can point, I carry this speech around with me whenever I'm in court. Somebody's about to be sentenced for a marijuana or other nonviolent crime. I pull out Ray Price's speech and say, hey Judge, the Chief Justice says right here, we shouldn't be sending people like this poor schmuck to jail, to prison. And it makes a difference. And you can use this speech in letters to the editor. You can use this speech in talks to people, your family, your friends. You know, be public, be outspoken. Write letters to the editor. It's so powerful and so easy and so cheap. Short ones are better. Just write a short, punchy letter. I want to tell you that I want to spend a minute or two, and somebody needs to drag me off of here when my time's up, but I want to spend a couple of minutes telling you some of your important rights. For 24 years, I've worked in the courts of the state of Missouri, all across the state of Missouri, defending people on nonviolent crimes. And I've learned a few things I want to share with you. And it does my heart great good and makes me just feel wonderful when people come up to me as they do at events like this and say, hey, I heard your speech a couple of years ago, I followed your advice, and by God, I walked away from a cop who was going to take me to jail otherwise. So, you know, it works, folks, it works. What's the magic words? The magic words are, I want a lawyer. I want to talk to a lawyer. I don't want to say anything without a lawyer. You know, you can put it any way you want. Just say lawyer, lawyer, lawyer till they get the point and they hear you and they know you're not going to say anything else except I want a lawyer. You know, that's what cops do. I have represented a few cops in my time, and when they realize that they are becoming a suspect, they clam up. Because you all know your most important constitutional rights. You know them by heart. You know them because you hear them on TV and in the movies. And police in the TV and the movies always tell people when they're arrested, after they're arrested, you know, they tell them, you have a right to remain silent. And if you don't remain silent, we're going to use what you say against you. And you have a right to a lawyer before you say anything. Well, that goes in one ear and out the other. People worry about whether it was read to them. Well, forget about whether they read it to you. You already know it. They're not bestowing those rights on you. They're just reminding you of the rights you always have. Use those rights. Do not talk to the police. It's the single most important piece of advice I can give to anybody. Don't talk to the police. They are not your friend. You will say things that will be used against you. Police will say things like, aha, I see there's a joint in the ashtray. Is that all there is? And, you know, do I have to tear up your car? Well, of course, many people say, yeah, that's all there is. Don't tear up my car. Well, when you go to trial, the prosecutor has to prove three things beyond a reasonable doubt to convict you of possession. Number one, that you knew the thing was there. Number two, that you knew what it was. And number three, that it was within your ability to control it. If you say, yeah, that's all there is, you've handed them the fact that you knew it was there. You knew it was there if you say that's all there is. Don't talk. Don't talk to the police. If you find yourself talking, shut up. You can always stop talking. You know, if you find yourself talking, you've made a mistake. Just stop. Just stop talking and say, I think I better talk to a lawyer. And they'll say something like, what do you need a lawyer for? You don't need a lawyer. That lawyer's not going to jail. You're the one that's going to go to jail. You know, you better talk. We're gonna do something terrible if you don't talk. And the more they say that, the more you should clam up. The more they know that you do know your rights. Don't tell them you know your rights. They'll know you know your rights when you don't talk to them. That's the most important single rule. Keep in mind that your garbage can always be searched. Most search warrants that I see for marijuana result from somebody's garbage being searched. And if they find stems, seeds, empty baggies with residue, high times, books on how to grow dope, I mean, you know, anything, empty packets of zigzag papers, don't put anything that even hints at marijuana or smells, literally, anything that smells like marijuana in your trash. Do not put roaches. Do not put even ashes in your trash. They can search your trash without a warrant. They will use what they find to get a warrant. They will ransack your home. They will subject you to home invasion. And home invasions with a search warrant are nothing but raw terrorism. And we are victims of terrorism perpetrated on us by the police that we pay. Don't be